Flavius Anastasius, called Dicorus, two pupils due to his heterochromia, was born in 430 in Dyrrachium, an important coastal city in Illyria, capital of the province of Epirus Nova, and with a population enriched by the important commercial activity developed in the city since its Greek colonial foundation in the 7th century BC. Cosmopolitan and diverse by nature, Anastasius's hometown may have contributed to the emperor's religious tolerance during his reign. Little is known about his family, but it is known that he had relatives of various religious denominations: Arian, Monophysite, Nicene, etc. The exact time of his departure for the capital is unknown, but it can be determined that it was during his adolescence or youth in order to educate himself. It is known that he received an elementary education in the imperial capital, where he learned Latin and Greek grammar and the fundamentals of law. His advanced education, however, is unknown to us, for he may well have remained in Constantinople to receive lessons at the Pandidactyrion, or else left for the great legal school of Berytus, present-day Beirut, a reference point throughout the Roman world. It is known, however, that he received advanced education in law. The time in which he grew up and lived was not lacking in activity. During Anastasius's lifetime, important political and religious events took place, such as the inexorable decline and subsequent disappearance of the Western Roman Empire and the emergence of heresies in Christianity, such as the Monophysite doctrine and Nestorianism, and their struggle on the part of the Chalcedonian Orthodoxy. Despite all this, we do not know his political opinions, but we do know that he was of Monophysite conviction in religious matters, possibly due to family inheritance more than anything else. We do know that in 476, he was exiled by Emperor Zeno, 474 to 491, to Egypt, possibly because of his religious convictions. Zeno, a convinced Chalcedonian Christian, was usurped by Basiliscus, 475 to 476, who, in order to improve his position, allied himself with the Monophysite factions of the empire, whose centers of power were in Egypt and Syria. Once the usurper was defeated, Zeno pursued this heresy more fervently than before, which may explain the exile of the Monophysite like Anastasius. In any case, it can also be intuited that our character worked in the imperial bureaucracy. It is certain that, when Zeno died and returned from exile, for which we do not know when or why, Anastasius was a decurion of the Silentiari, a body which, as its name suggests, was dedicated to maintaining silence, order, and solemnity in the palace, especially in the presence of the emperor. We can affirm that, although he was fortunate enough to be a member of the imperial palace, he was not particularly relevant in this respect. On the 9th of April, 491, Emperor Zeno died. The Isaurian left no descendants, but he did have a brother, Longinus, who, although he was a trusted man of the late sovereign, was not considered to succeed him in the purple. It is worth noting that the Isaurian ethnicity was not welcomed by the rest of the inhabitants of the empire, so perhaps this is why he was set aside. The Dowager Empress, Ariadne, chose Anastasius to take the throne. The two were married within a few weeks, suggesting that they were lovers, although this was probably a strategy on their part to tie the new emperor to the Leonid dynasty. The office of Silentiarius may not have been all that important, and indeed this was the reason for his election, but it enabled Anastasius to make himself known to the people. Also, the Patriarch of Constantinople, Euphemius, imposed the condition that the newly crowned emperor abandon his Monophysite confession in order to return the orthodoxy, signing a declaration of faith in it. Religious tension was at its height when Anastasius ascended the throne. Zeno, Anastasius's predecessor, wrote the Henoticon, which sought to secure religious peace in the empire by condemning Nestorius and Eutychus without giving a definitive answer as to the true nature of Christ. Nevertheless, the religious controversy would not be a problem solved during the reign of Anastasius. He also provoked religious riots in the capital because of the inclusion of the phrase, "He who was crucified for us, have mercy on us," typical of the right of the eastern provinces of the empire in the Chrysargyron. These revolts were put down by himself with a speech in the Hippodrome. On the military side, Anastasius had to put down a revolt of the Isaurians, which turned into a war that lasted from 492 to 497. John Malalas tells us that the emperor's generals showed no mercy to the Isaurian rebels, leaving his province completely devastated. His other major front was war against the Persians. The Sassanid Empire of Kavad I had seized the important cities of Amida and Theodosiopolis, capitals of Mesopotamia and Armenia, respectively. In response to this, Anastasius refounded and fortified the city of Dara, renaming it Anastasiopolis. This newly fortified city was intended to serve as a base of operations for the Roman armies in the Persian campaign, just as the Iranians possessed the once Roman city of Nisibis, only 18 kilometers from Anastasiopolis, which was giving them such an advantage in the war. The cities of Edessa, Batne, and the aforementioned Amida were also fortified, in the case of Amida after it was reconquered. The war ended in status quo, but the delicate state of the Roman eastern frontier was redressed to the point of making it much more secure and impassable thanks to the fortification of these cities. However, perhaps Anastasius's most important achievement was in the field of economics. The Roman monetary system, although centered on the stable gold soldius, established by Constantine the Great, was seeing less valuable coins, such as the numus, becoming less and less valuable, making basic activities such as the purchase of food by the population or the payment of soldiers difficult. To correct this, Anastasius divided the numus into more stable values. Furthermore, his bureaucratic administration was always underpinned by meritocracy, and he surrounded himself with true technocrats such as Polycarp and Marianus of Apamea. The healthy administration he built up together with a new tax and tariff reform, the reduction of palace and court maintenance, as well as the fight against corruption and abuses within the military administration, left the empire's coffers with, according to his panegyrist, 320,000 pounds of gold. This vast amount of money supported the achievements of future emperors, particularly Justinian the Great. Anastasius died on the 10th of July, 518, after a very long life of 87 years, 27 of which he reigned. His death brought the end of the Leonid dynasty, which had ruled the empire for more than 60 years, and ushered in the Justinian dynasty, established by Justin I, which would take the empire to new heights and a splendor that was thought to have been lost. That's it for today, but don't worry, we're just getting started. Thanks for joining this historical ride, and get ready for more fun facts and stories in the next video. See you soon, time travelers.